Coming up on this episode, I'll talk about pushing back and how you can use that time when you slow down and recharge to really look around and understand yourself and why you're pushing in the first place. So let's get into it. What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Perspective Changer podcast, and I'm your host, John. On this episode, I want to talk about pushing back. So last episode with Big Dave, I talked about slowing down and how sometimes in life you do just need to take that minute and catch your breath. But it's about what you do in that time of slowing down and about finding out those things that you do want to push for. So that when you have recharged and you've got the energy again, you can push and get to where you want to be. Now the thing is, our understanding of life is always changing. So you might spend 6 months pushing towards a certain goal, get fatigued and burnt out or whatever else. Take some time to slow down and realize that you don't actually want to go down that road anymore, or you've taken that avenue as far as you want to go. Or you want to keep going and put even more time and effort and energy into it, and you realize why you started in the first place. But it is firstly about taking that time to slow down and then recalculate and recalibrate to why you're doing it. There's so many instances in life where just because we've lost the reason why we're doing something, we struggle to do it to any end. But when you take that time to slow down and remind yourself why you're doing things, it becomes far easier to push back once you've recharged. And that's the thing is it's that constant push and pull and ebb and flow of finding your limit and then pushing beyond it and then taking a breath and then pushing beyond it again. There's so many challenges that you're going to face in life that you're going to develop through, and it's going to change who you are as a person and how you look at the world. So then as that's happening, you have to kind of re-ask yourself, do you still want all of the things that you wanted when you set out on your journey? You may have had one destination in mind, but from all of the things that you've seen, experienced, and all the places that you've been, you want to go down a completely other road in life, and the grass wasn't as green as you thought it was down that avenue. Fair enough. I think we all get institutionalized in life in a sense where we think that how we've been doing things is the only way to do things. But there are so many aspects to life, there are so many different types of life that you can lead that you don't really know what's on the other side of it. There's always going to be instances in life where it's a proverbial fork in the road. You can go right or go left. That's going to happen all throughout life, and each turn there's a different experience. And that different experience is going to add to your life differently, and then it's going to play forward differently. So taking the time to sit down and first ask yourself what you want, then periodically kind of checking in to see if it's still what you want with all the new information you've gathered. You may want to go to a certain destination or whatever, say a certain country. But then as you're working your way towards going to that country, you find out more and more about that place, and then it puts you off going. But yet you've spent 6 months to a year saving and planning on moving your whole life out of there because of a pipe dream. But now you've got new information where that place is now undesirable for you. Doesn't mean you throw that progress away. It's just that, okay, cool. Now what do I want to do with all of this? Where do I want to go? Is there somewhere else I want to research? What can you learn from that situation? When you're slowing down, what can you learn from all of the pushing that you've been doing so that you can push again once you've recharged? It's that constant thing of pushing and pulling. I literally just said it. There's always going to be those instances in life. Just be more aware of them. And the more aware you can be of them, the more you can kind of coach yourself through them and understand that you're in them in the first place, and then you can kind of work through them quicker. Even now, nobody's perfect, everybody has their bad days. But now I remind myself, even if I am having a bad day, that it's temporary. And that always seems to help in one regard, because there's no arguing that, yeah, cool, I might be annoyed now, but as time passes, that level of annoyance is going to go down. So if you're fatigued and you're exhausted and then you take a break, that level of fatigue is going to come down. All of that burnout is slowly going to go away. And then it's time to push again. And again, you push back wiser. Realize, was it worth you getting that fatigued? Sometimes it's worth it. There are times where I would ride it until the wheels come off because I deemed it was worth it. Fair play. If that's the case, that's the case. But it's not always the case. So understand where you need to push those limits and where you can dial things back. It might be that you can go hard for a good few days or even weeks, but then you need to recoup. And that might just become your routine. I like the idea of kind of finding your own internal clock. Everybody lives by obviously the traditional clock, and some people that work outside of like mainstream jobs and that might operate on their own clock to an extent. But I like to think about it of more in terms of your actual body clock, like when your body's tired, like look at it from a yearly kind of scale. Look at it from like, in summer you're more than likely going to be more energized and more willing to be outside and up earlier and up later and blah 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 blah. There's more kind of usable day. Through the winter, there's less usable day. So I think our body naturally wants to mimic that throughout life, and obviously depending on where you live, that's going to differentiate for everybody. But just actually listening to our bodies and having that idea of like, okay, is my body fatigued? Is it out of sync? Da 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 da. Like checking in on yourself on all of these different variables is all going to help you to push back and understand yourself more. The more you understand yourself, the more you're going to be able to push yourself. The more you're going to know your limits, you're going to be able to know that, cool, I can take it to, say, a proverbial 90 mile an hour for 10 minutes. And then I need to take a couple minute break before I go again or whatever else. But again, you learn your ebb and flow. You learn what makes you tick. And that only comes over time, and it only comes from pushing your limits and making the mistakes. So you need to kind of push yourself to that point where you burn out or you get exhausted and things feel dire before you can learn those lessons and go, okay, cool, that's the limit. Now, the wise thing to do is to recognize that limit and take note of it. The silly thing to do is to go, well, I just went too hard, and then do the exact same thing with no adjustment to yourself going forward. So make the adjustments. It's not to say not to push yourself to limits and go beyond what anybody else has ever done before or whatever else. By all means, push those limits. But understand yourself, your capabilities, and understand what's going to get you to those limits. Even if you took an actual machine and you run it 24/7, 365, it's going to get worn out, parts get worn, blah, 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 blah. You're the same, you're an organic machine. So understand you can't run yourself ragged 24/7. You need to rest your body, you need to rest your mind. And you need loads of different kind of stimulus and nutrients and nourishment through life. Like sometimes it could be literal like food and just recharging in that sense. Sometimes it could be social connection. Sometimes it could be creativity. So whatever it is, like there's loads of ways that we can express ourselves and interact with the world. But we don't take the time to sit with that and understand that we need those things. So then when we slow down and kind of take that beat to say like, cool, what is it I need? It's not always going to be the same thing. Every time you're fatigued, you might not need a drinking session with your mates. You might need a good meal and a cuddle session, I don't know, whatever. You might need the polar opposite. But there's a lot to life, and understanding that what makes you tick through life and where your limits are, to me that's fun and that's part of life. But it's that constant ebb and flow. So if you are down, if you have been in that stage where you're slowing down and you're kind of catching your breath, take in as much as you can while you're slowing down and use it to push you again. Because again, it's going to push you to that next milestone. And at that next milestone, you're going to get fatigued again. Don't worry. Take that breath, look around, see what you can learn, see what you can do, enjoy the moment, and then push again. Like, it really is just kind of jumping from one lily pad in life to the next. And just take the time to enjoy each lily pad. The fatigue, the slowing down, the burnout, it don't have to be a bad thing. It really is your body's way of just giving you that kind of reality check. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up. It's been a little bit all over the place, but hey ho, ain't they always? The seed for this episode is understand that if you're coming off the back of fatigue, if you're coming off the back of slowing down and everything else, that's you priming up to push back. So use that energy. That's when you're most recharged. Remind yourself of your purpose. Remind yourself of your passion. Remind yourself of your why. And use it to fuel you to push on forward. Don't get disheartened. Don't get knocked down. Don't stay down. Use that, channel it, and charge forward with it. All the best, and I'll catch you in the next one.